Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, hosted by me, Mal McCallion, and my partner in crime, Matt Goddard. Matt, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Miles. Good to be back. Let's get
Yes,
into it.
and congratulations again on your Everton Odyssey yesterday.
Absolutely. You've just about coughed up all the blue smoke.
Nice one. All right, so we are going to dive deep as ever into all of the news surrounding the paired worlds of property and AI. So let's kick it off with our property news. All right, so this week we are going to start with really AI focused digital twins. So Matterport, which is now owned by CoStar, is targeting essentially building online versions of homes. And Matt, you identified this one as a really sort of big story for this week.
Well, this one continues from what we were speaking about over the last few weeks, really, or continuation of those stories. So Matterport, as you called out, had been purchased by CoStar. I can't remember the exact price, but I'm sure it's a shed load
1.6
of
billion, I
cash.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1.6 billion. And obviously CoStar have now acquired Domain down in Australia, who are the second biggest portal down there. And so this came out of, I think it was realestate.com.au just this week. It's a big article, big set of detail, that Elite Agent being one of the main sort of industry newspapers down there, putting a lot of information in front of the agents and pushing it quite heavily to the real estate brokers down in Australia. And it all tied quite nicely together with our themes that have been running through the podcast. So I thought it was quite an interesting one for us to discuss.
Yeah, and listen, so I think that the way that CoStar is obviously almost seeding the different markets with these portals that they're acquiring in the big markets. So obviously they've got one in the States, homes.com. I think one in Australia now, Domain. Now they've got on the market here in the UK. And then to distribute this particular technology, the Matterport technology, through those networks, I think is a really sensible move. I'm always interested in what would happen. So if I'm an agent and I've Matterported up a particular house, am I going to be not able to show that on a Rightmove or a realestate.com.au or a Zillow, and only allowed to show it on the CoStar portals? Or is there going to be some just additional funky stuff that's going to be available on the CoStar platforms that isn't available on some of the other basics? And I think they'll probably lean towards the latter, because
Mhm.
that will then incentivize people to go to those portals rather than some of the dominant ones.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah, so so I think yeah, everything that CoStar does right now is generally aggressive in terms of competitive, and I think that's what's really quite exciting. They do seem to be thinking of things differently. They do seem to have utter confidence that the thing that hasn't happened to date, which is unseating one of the market leaders, is eminently possible. And yeah, and I think that in this world of AI, I think that they're right. I think that this is a technological shift, and I think that everything's up for grabs for the first time probably since print moved to digital back in 2000.
It's certainly about the content, isn't it? And as much content as being produced and the rich value of all of that content with the large language models grabbing it and pulling them into their own models, as much could be served up and redirected and giving the agents these additional tools. And as I've said time and time previously, Australia always seems to be a few years, if not a decade or so, in advance on the marketing. So to see CoStar dropping Matterport into that market now is certainly interesting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. So on the same adjacent topic of CoStar's owned businesses, over here in the UK, a bit of controversy last week where the CoStar owned on the market has had its wrists slapped by the Advertising Standards Authority for misleading traffic claims, it says. So essentially last September 2024, it seems to, according to the reports, seems to have thrown absolutely everything, the kitchen sink, at driving traffic up, and there was therefore able for that month to claim that it had higher traffic than Zoopla. And boy, did it milk that particular message to the chagrin of the ASA, and particularly Zoopla's chief exec at the time, Charlie Bryan.
I remember you in the podcasts at the time, or maybe on the turn of the year, you were highlighting this bit of controversy that was going on, and there was very much a public spat over it, wasn't it? One week was, here's our statistics that make us top, and then next week is, here's our statistics that make us top, and it was like a fisticuffs outside the nightclub, but in the public domain. And to see it now come back via the ASA and get that outcome, I think it's certainly quite entertaining. I think you called it out, and I know I spotted it at the time as well, as the juxtaposition of these articles are always quite entertaining when you see them in the Negotiator or Property Industry, however else, where you've got one person saying one thing and then the competitor's banner ad to the side of it, and vice versa at times.
Yeah, hilarious. And yeah, so literally last week, the daily newsletter came through. I think it was Property Industry Eye, and it had literally alongside the story that was Zoopla responding to the ASA's slapped wrists for on the market. It had a big block advert for on the market saying that agents preferred it, and then underneath that there was a Zoopla. We're bigger than on the market, but still smaller than Move. And
Well, that's it. It's the one that sort of sits in the background quietly and perversely, isn't it? Just increasing margins.
100%. And it's just so these guys did. And I still remember Peter Brooks Johnson, who was the previous chief exec before Johan Svanstrom of Rightmove, just doing an interview. And it was probably like 2018 or something like that. He said, look, all these companies keep coming at us. And he said, we're like the people who sit in the kitchen at parties. Everybody else is going nuts and stuff like that. And we're just sitting and having a nice little chat and just watching what's going on. And it's just that kind of level of, some might call it calmness, others might call it arrogance. Basically, everyone's just, these guys just throwing rocks at each other. And Rightmove does not care. And they're spending so much money doing it. Crazy. There is another way. We'll find it. Anyway,
And that follows on quite nicely, doesn't it? It's the next story.
yeah, so Knight Frank and Zoopla have agreed a listings deal, 3 years. Who knows what the commercial terms of that particular arrangement are, but everybody's come out and bitten and made nice with each other and said how amazing each of those particular brands is. It's very easy to announce these kinds of things. I don't know that it moves the needle in terms of people going, oh, right, Knight Frank are on there for 3 years, then I'm going to have to sign up. Or if it's just a defensive play to make sure that they're in the news for something positive rather than grassing on the market to the ASA. So that's happening, and there's various ones of those come periodically. And then, yeah, in the midst of all of this, Move is launching its a TV ad campaign. Now, it's the same TV ad as they did last Christmas. So there's no new creative or anything like that. They've just dropped another few million because they can, and are now just but whilst the industry competitors are fighting each other, Rightmove's just sailing on and going out and trying to grab as many more consumers as it possibly can, wrap them up inside their website, and it doesn't really matter what else happens, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, as you say, it leaves everyone to one side and ticks along.
Yeah, exactly. Again, there's what one thing I know that we do talk about quite a lot is that AI is changing the fundamentals of a lot of this. Yeah, I think as we go through and continue to talk about all this stuff, Matt, I'm certain that things will start to change over time. So yes, watch this space. Keep on listening. All right, next up, we wanted to have a look overseas, and this is a particular area of interest for you, mate. Actually, it's two areas of interest. One is Dubai, and the other one is football.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the wrong blue football kit, though, right, in terms of this one. So I spotted this one mainly. So this is Chelsea Residences in Dubai. And for those that don't know, over in Dubai, there's quite a lot of co-branded developments going up now. And so there's brands that I'm aware of, but sometimes can't even pronounce the names, such as there's Damac and Versace have gone off and built co-branded developments where not only did the brand have the opportunity to influence the design and spec of the fit outs, but obviously put their name in massive letters all over various places. And there's a whole range of Bugatti and Amar and various other ones. So it's a trend that's been going on, if trend's the right words, for a little while. And Chelsea have now jumped into that. Chelsea FC, that is, have now jumped in. And there's going to be the Chelsea Residences by Damac, Damac being one of the big home builders over there. And there's actually Damac Towers popping up in the UK now.
Yeah.
I spotted. I can't remember if it was East London, but also Manchester and other places. So they're a big old home builder, and they've now launched this Chelsea branded luxury development. It's coming to Dubai, basically all ultra premium finishes. And if you get a chance to see the pictures, they've got rooftop football pitches with the Chelsea emblem on them, and swimming pools with infinity edges to them with Chelsea emblems on there. And it makes me wonder the cage football pitch we've got around here in southeast London. If we need, actually, we've got Lambeth Tigers around the corner, which has got their emblem on the
Yeah.
bottom of it. But and that's who's the lads? Jordan Sancho is sponsors and pays for that side of things. In
Okay.
fact, doesn't he play for Chelsea at the
He
moment on
does now,
loan from
yeah.
Man
Yeah,
U?
he's on loan.
And they've extended that partnership further. I spotted in the Metro over the weekend because they're now sponsoring Chelsea FC as well, Damac. So they're a big old home builder who obviously put in a lot of money and cash and influence now into the UK.
I love the idea of this kind of co-branding of it. So essentially, the essence of Chelsea is there in Dubai in this particular building. You've got, I don't know, Cole Palmer, his face is like popping up in.
The football pitch it goes a little. I'm going to stop before I start thinking about the John Terry era of football and leave it at that. But yeah, some of them are really. There's the Armani and Amar. There's Versace and Ensha. Is it Bulgari? The one with a V
Yeah,
in it.
the brand,
And
yeah.
Meras. So there's a lot of these developments, and they off plan over there goes out the window, off the shelf really quickly, and it's just more opportunity to get people to buy your residence as you put
Yeah.
them up than anybody else.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, 1,400 homes going up over there with the Chelsea essence. Yeah, not sure they're going to come from my team, Ipswich Town, anytime soon. But
I was going to say, well, Goodison Park's not being redeveloped now. We're going to be passing that on to the women's team, and that's
yeah,
great news. But I was thinking maybe my Blundell Park, Grimsby Town, we could maybe have some sponsorship deal like we used to do with the Food Town, wasn't it? So Grimsby's Food Town for a long time.
brilliant stuff. All right, that is our property news this week. Now let's talk AI and tech. All right, just before we dug into that, we wanted to talk about our new sponsors. Now, we are delighted to be working with the Property Academy. They've got what they're calling the Millionaire Estate Agent Roadshow. It's coming to 4 locations in the early part of June. And it's going to be helping you as an estate agent essentially to get £1 million turnover, all right, in a year. So really great speakers, great event. There's going to be so much to learn. Obviously, a real heavy focus on AI, which is something that we're super excited about here. It's going to be in Newcastle on the 3rd of June, in Newark on the 4th, and then Warwickshire on the 10th and Berkshire on the 11th. Head on over to the website eamasters.co.uk/2025 roadshows. All right, so that's eamasters.co.uk/2025 roadshows. Me and Matt will be making an appearance at a couple of them too, eh, Matt?
Absolutely. I'm going to be definitely at the Newark one. Looking forward to seeing the content and catching up with some good friends there.
Yeah, exactly. So really great agents, really great speakers and so on. So yeah, get yourselves to that. It's all free. So head on over to that website, eamasters.co.uk/2025 roadshow. All right, on with the AI and tech news this week. Wanted to kick off with LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is rolling out a generative AI tool that basically lets you describe your dream job, and it will go away and it will bring back results of jobs that are on offer right now that would fit that particular sweet spot. My interest was piqued on this one because this is how I think people are going to be looking for property in the future as well. Basically, you will just talk into your phone in ChatGPT or whatever your preferred model, and it will come back with the properties that fulfill your dream of living by the sea with access to a train station and a parking space and a school, an outstanding school for the kids. And you just basically just chat away, and it will bring back a short list of results that match your criteria. So yeah, Matt, obviously this is something that I think is going to be pretty huge. What's your take?
It's great in terms of it's the first example for me of where accessible AI is coming in. And we've talked about that before about how AI comes into our lives via things like the spell checker, and it starts with the red squiggly line and then slowly starts telling you how the word should be changed and then starts predicting the whole new sentence. And for me, LinkedIn rolling this out is actually another example where you could almost not tell people it's AI. You start to see this is how it's working, this is how you use it, and you can't. It's not a hop, skip, and jump to seeing why don't the portals start introducing this, and not just a LinkedIn or we've talked about before about Shopify and others embracing AI, and we've got others later on in today's show notes, but to actually start having this, and the way that it works will be brilliant because you know that LinkedIn, obviously, when they roll out an update to the app, you get it immediately, and therefore you start be able to use it without almost by stealth, isn't it, when you get these sort of upgrades. And the fact that they've done this and got ahead of the curve, because they are really the biggest job site now, aren't they, in terms of just the content and the people involved in it. So why not embrace it rather than running and hiding in the background?
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting, and again, kind of mapping it across to potential the portal activity. So, can you imagine Rightmove doing this? And I think the problem Rightmove has got is that they make an absolute ton of their enormous margin, 73%, from featured properties and upsells and things like that. So, if they essentially allow people to dodge through that. So actually to go straight to the property listing rather than have this presentation of featured property lists and so on, then they're starting to remove a lot of the reason for agents to pay them more. And as we know, Innovator's Dilemma basically says if you start to change your website, particularly one that is this money generative, then you start to get people thinking, why don't I go somewhere else? So I think they're in a really interesting bind because this is, in my view, the way that it's going to go. But the fact that LinkedIn is doing it is a testament to that. But yeah, I just think it's going to be really interesting to see how they try and engage with AI, because as a business that has made a phenomenal amount of money doing it this one way, to try and switch horses, dive another way, I think is going to, at the very, either compromise their profitability and or compromise their USP. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting space too.
Everyone who offers versions of these services is facing that challenge, aren't they? Whether it's Facebook and Google, right the way through to LinkedIn and onto the portals. Like, how do you switch models? And we saw just in the week, didn't we, in terms of another statistical or visualization of how ChatGPT, the sort of AI search is overtaking everything now. How do you switch models so that you start getting new revenue from somewhere else other than just that historic ad spend? And I say just, but Facebook made that switch previously, didn't they, to where they suddenly became an ads, was where they got their revenue from, was through ads. And it's having to think about that pivot and get ahead of the curve rather than freezing in the, what is it, fight or flight sort of mode.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, which brings us nicely on to the fact that Google has lost so much of its search traffic. Apple was there last week, a week before, saying that essentially for the first time ever, they've seen search drop on their Safari browser. And Google is now looking at its real estate, the area of their sites that has remained the same for ever. And there's the button, the I'm feeling lucky button, which I don't know if anybody has pressed this century.
I realized it was still there.
Yeah, it was because it was the thing, wasn't it? Like it was like such fun, like back in the day, like this is the late 90s. And then yeah, but it's still there, although not for much longer.
And I was listening to a podcast that mentioned this, and I was like, obviously, you look at it on your mobile, and the mobile layout's slightly different. So it's like, when was the last time you actually looked at Google on your desktop rather than just typing straight into the Chrome bar and doing your search from there? But there it was, the I'm feeling lucky, and it felt just quite retro looking at the plain Google homepage in its own right. But they're doing A/B testing on the moment in beta of swapping this out for an AI option with the, is it 20 plus years that the I'm feeling lucky button's been there? You just said late 90s. Yes, it was, I think the new article I was listening to said 22 years, and they're basically ready to retire it subject to this beta testing. So it's, I think it could easily be like Skype the other week where we do an RIP on it, and it just shows the length and depth that this is changing everything.
Yeah, it's a serious change to you. And these are guys who know what's coming down the track and are anticipating it. So yeah, Google's replacing the I'm feeling lucky button with an AI mode button. And they're doing a lot more as well. So this week is Google's I/O Developer Conference. So there's tons of new features and stuff being trailed by them. Also, other frontier models, competitors trying to get themselves in the news, either to spike the guns of Google or to announce something that Google is then going to announce, and then they look like they're first. But yes, what we've got are things like Alpha Evolve, which is a Google Gemini powered coding agent, and also OpenAI at the same time is introducing Codex, which is another coding platform. What should we be thinking about when we're thinking about this sort of stuff, Matt?
I think it's just keeping a watching brief more than anything. There's so much change, as you've said again, sounds sad going back to one of your podcasts after Christmas, but you had I can't remember what the tagline was, but your 12 days of AI Xmas or similar. But there's so much going on ahead of this Google I/O that to rattle through them, a lot of it's related to vibe coding, which we've talked about over recent podcasts, so people can go back and look back at that. Codex from OpenAI being one particular vibe coding that's come along. Just the fact that Meta's Llama 4 has been delayed again, and them needing to put that article out ahead of this conference. It was going to be their big trailblazing. It's the new version of their Behemoth, and it's been delayed, but they need to do that. But the one I'm quite interested in is Windsurf. And Windsurf is another vibe coding tool. It's being purported that OpenAI are looking to purchase it for, I think, did you say it's 3.1 billion?
3 billion, yeah.
Yeah, chuck in the 0.1. It's not that much down back of the cows type stuff. But this is the first of it's more than vibe coding, really. This is coding assistance, which normally is tactical coding, so helping you write the lines of code that go into the product, whereas this is the full development life cycle from product ideation right the way through to testing and also user feedback. And the fact that OpenAI are looking to buy it certainly signals something. But on top of that, they've built their own large language models, which seem a bit of a statement of intent against them. So those tools that put more of the ability to produce products into the hands of lay people rather than the sort of the knowledge, the coders, but also really enable the developers. I know a number of the businesses I work with where every breathing minute of every day is spent thinking about how we're going to utilize this. I think Cursor, which is another of the coding assistants that is so quickly spun up and became so heavily utilized, was because The way that development normally works is you write a line of code and you submit a pull request to a colleague to review it. With these, you're actually submitting and reviewing pull requests that are being written by the AI.
Yeah.
And so they're making you much more effective. And in my mind, it becomes, I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but you become this sort of swarm of AI, and you have this swarm of AI agents, so that every time you do something, you have hundreds of AI agents working on something, and they're reviewing each other's and then just presenting the final best solution to you, rather than when you sit at home with ChatGPT and type something in, it's just you and ChatGPT coming back, right? Or Gemini or Perplexity or whichever you Claude, whichever. There are other good assistants out there, but this idea that you can become so much more amplified in what you do by utilizing these.
That's right. And this is almost like the first sort of frontier. So
Mm,
this is what's happening with coding and developing and stuff like that. And that historically has been really complex and really, yeah, almost like a kind of, yeah, frankly, from the sidelines, witchcraft. So now this is being demystified by AI. And I think that's going to be true for any number of jobs, right? And, there are going to be so many skills that have been embedded in one particular person or a team that AI is going to be able to augment and help and basically going to be able to get so much more done. But I do think, and again, for all those property interested people out there, the big transaction, the selling of or letting of your property, I still think that's going to be human focused. I think, everything that I know we're doing, everything I know you're doing as well, Matt, is around helping humans to do human stuff and the machines do the machine stuff. So if we don't have to sit there and type code and then check it and do all that sort of stuff because the AI can do it, then brilliant. That means we can go off and do some much more fun stuff and interesting stuff and design it and orchestrate it, do all that sort of thing. But yeah, the actual grunt work is being done by the machine. So I think that's good.
absolutely. And I think this, you always hear these bad news stories, don't you, as well? That sort of for every time you hear a positive, look, there's these new frontier models, there's all this great stuff going on, and it doesn't always feel accessible. Like coming back to the top, that's where when LinkedIn starts to roll something out, okay, it's the beast that is LinkedIn is rolling out some new AI. And another negative in the press was the idea that Klarna was suddenly having been a trailblazer in getting rid of a load of staff and putting support into AI, is now having to hire loads of support agents once again to deal with it. But when you look into the nuance of it, it's actually a case of there is a time where you want to escalate and speak to a human, like you say with real estate. And that's when things are getting emotional, or it's a bit challenging, or it's an edge case, or just you want to speak to a human.
Yeah.
And Klarna have tried this, and they've said we've gone with the approach, and whilst they're solving a huge volume of cases utilizing AI, they're now getting to a stage where if I think about my old support team at Repeat, for simplicity, we had first line, second line, and third line. And third line were the people who knew where all the buttons were, where the skeletons were in the cupboards. They could get anything set up. Well, you'd have to go through first and second line to get there. Whereas what Klarna are finding now is the AI is covering the first and second hops. And what they're able to do is hire more and more people into that third line where they've got the really skilled knowledge that as soon as you get hold of them, you are talking to the person who deals with it. And I think about it, and for anyone who's worked with me on lettings and client accounts over the years, when I worked at Foxtons, we had Vibra Premise as our accounting platform. And normally, if someone came to me with an issue, it meant that something was really wrong. And I would look in the background. So, say Mal's been kicking off because he's in a tax haven and we're holding £10,000 of his tax money. And we go, yeah, you're right, we should be releasing this, but we just can't get the system to release the money. There's nothing we can do to give Mal his 10,000 back. So we'd ring Vibra Premises hotline, and you get a press one to wait for another 45 minutes to 10 hours, or press two to leave a message. And then you press two to leave a message, and 3 days later, someone calls you back and goes, oh, it's you, Matt. Let me get the technical director in. Technical director goes, yep, I've just changed something in the database. That money's gone back to Mal. And that's the sort of a situation where now Klarna's got people talking straight to that technical director rather than going through those phases of IVR and whatever else.
I think it's Klarna was held up probably about this time last year was when they made the big announcement that basically 85% of all of their jobs now, customer service jobs, were gone because they were able to use AI for it. And at the time, it just felt really quite jarring and really, how come they were able to do it? And I was speaking to big agents who are running 1,000 branch firms saying, why can't we do this? And I'm like, because the tech doesn't really, it doesn't do it well enough. And yet Klarna are out there and everybody was putting Klarna and going, look, Klarna can do it, so why can't we do it? And in the end, it turns out, and I read a really interesting article, just digressing slightly, that basically said that it was all about, over in Sweden, which is where they're based, it was about the power of the unions. And basically Klarna was trying to break the employee kind of union by telling them, no, we don't need you guys. So actually, it is interesting to see it's all come kind of full circle now. They're going, actually, do you know what? Maybe we do need some humans after all. So yeah, there will be a lot more of these kind of stories, I think, going around that are like all kind of hype, and everyone's going, really? Is that possible? And then actually, no, it's not possible. So yeah, the place you need to listen to all this stuff, Matt, is right here on the
Yeah,
Property Hour report,
absolutely.
isn't it? We'll help you through all of
We
that.
need a trip to Sweden, don't we?
Do actually, yeah, we should go and have a check and just make sure that they are
It's coming
really.
into that time where the lakes up there are beautiful, ready for swimming and not frozen over.
Yes, coming to you soon. We're going to do a Property Hour report on the road. Watch this space. Anyway, next up, we wanted to. So, yes, that's a roundup of our AI and tech news. We always want to help you with what is actually practical and you can use right now. So, let's dive into our tool of the week. Our AI tool of the week this week is called DOJI. Now, this has raised $40 million to make virtual try-ons fun through AI avatars. Okay, so this is clothing. And again, similar to the sort of LinkedIn thing, there is obvious parallels in the estate agency world here. Basically, what they're doing is you basically upload some photos of yourself and dimensions and stuff like that. So then you've got your own AI avatar, and then you can basically clothe it. All right. And you can try on all loads of different clothes and then buy. Now, clearly, so that's DOJI. Go and have a look at it. What this obviously has parallels over at the residential market for property, because you are going to be able to do exactly the same for your home. You're going to be able to upload a photo of your home and then restyle it, virtual staging, and then click and buy. And there is a business out there already called Proptex, PROPTEXX, that allows you to do this. They've got a deal with IKEA. So basically, you can just click and buy IKEA stuff. Really exciting kind of moments, I think. It's happening in clothing and retail, and I think it's going to come over here for property too. I also think it's quite interesting if you look at what we were talking about right up the front of this episode, what CoStar's doing with Meta, with Metaprop, it's going to be able to showcase that as well, I think. All right, so that is the end of our tool of the week. Matt, you had some weird AI of the week that you wanted us to just very delicately talk about really quickly with our nose.
So we're not. So we had a very awkward one in terms of Grok, which is Elon Musk and XAI's AI, which had gone rogue, and we had the sycophantic ChatGPT, where I think there'd been a patch that had been released and made it too people pleasing, and then Grok seems to have said, "Hold my beer," and has gone completely off on one, which basically every tweet sent into this Grok AI, despite what you might ask it, who won the World Series of baseball in 1990, was coming back and starting conspiracy theories based around white supremacism in South Africa. And so pretty weird and concerning, especially around the content safety of these large language models. And there's two things that came out of it, actually. One was they claim it was based on a patch, which I think was the same problem. So this is where they release a small amount of code into the main product or application, and that's what sent the Grok rogue, which sounds quite fitting, doesn't it, when I say it like that? But also, interestingly, this is where they've also come back and said, from now on, we will publish openly in GitHub all of our prompts. It's yet to happen yet, but it means that we will be able to look and see what prompts are generating that thought process behind the large language model. So it's obviously sensitive in terms of, for some reason, Grok AI was going down the white genocide controversy in South Africa, which is obviously Elon Musk is a white South African.
Entirely unrelated.
And I think it was released at something like 3:20 a.m. as well, this line of code, or written. So there's something definitely going awry in there. But yes, it was certainly very weird. And you can see in Twitter, there's a Grok channel, and you can see everything that's being asked of it, and then it be going rogue in there.
No, it's a real problem, and the fact that it's Elon Musk's AI platform, the fact that it has jumped on one of his particular hobby horses, and as you say, it was released at 3:20 in the morning, does lend itself to the idea that this has been something that was perhaps, yes, mistakenly instructed or mistakenly understood as an edict to change things. But yeah, the thing that we've all got to think about is which platforms we're using, who has the potential to influence what comes out of it. And yes, it is good that Grok is now publicizing, although it hasn't done yet. It's saying it's going to publicize all of its different prompts and all of its different instructions, but that's who's checking that. So I think go with whichever. Trust is going to be so important in AI. Trust. You've got to trust what you're using. You've got to trust who you're working with, all that sort of stuff, because there is absolutely the potential for these things to be influenced by outside forces that yeah, it might be a lot less subtle next time than this particular event. So yeah, that is our weird/scary AI of the week. Alrighty, Matt, that is it for this week. Thank you so much, everybody out there, for joining us. Thank you, Matt, for being part of it. Really good to catch up.
Yeah, you too, Mel. Thanks very much. Really enjoyed that too. And have a great week, everyone.
Likewise, enjoy. We will catch you next week for more property and AI news. Have a great few days and we'll see you then. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.